Good morning. My name is Sachi, and today I will be explaining my answer for my critical creative reflection question number 3. How did your production skills develop through this project? Now, when it comes to the making of imperfections, I think the area in which I made the greatest improvement was probably editing, as well as mise-en-scene and camera work, of course, because editing was one of the main areas I was focused on this year as the main editor for our group. As it was my area of expertise, it is obviously where I improved the most, and it does help that editing is one of the areas in which I have some degree of prior knowledge and experience with, and that knowledge came helpful when it came to creating imperfections. Now, let me give you some background. I have experience with editing from when I was a child. I used to edit little clips of drawings together and mishmash them into one video and upload them. Now, that's just a matter of putting footage together in the right order and making sure it plays correctly. So, I'm not sure if there was any real editing process involved there. Coming back to editing for this project, however, particularly when it comes to DaVinci Resolve, I quite struggled in the beginning because it was a new experience for me. The software was a lot more professional grade than I was used to, and it took quite some time to get to understand. With the interface and the many features DaVinci offers, it was quite a challenge this year for me to learn it all. Now, with this overwhelming experience, what really helped me navigate and understand all what I needed to know to edit this film was YouTube. YouTube offered a range of tutorials and practically any answer to any query I had regarding DaVinci. And although now I can say I fare well when it comes to adding a dynamic keyframe or changing the pitch of an audio, I must admit that I am far from a professional level, and there are many areas I need to work on. But this project has been a huge leap from where I began. A challenge during my editing process was my struggles with pacing for the film. As stated during the film requirements, the film had to be 2 minutes long. However, when I edited the first draft of the final film and what it would likely look like, it came out to 4 whole minutes. And that was a huge issue for us, all of us, to navigate as the director, writer, and editor, because we had to decide which scenes were less important and less relevant to our message to be able to cut out, and what scenes were able to speed up without completely ruining the pacing of the film and the narrative structure. We also made it a point to get feedback from our teachers to understand what scenes they did not like and what scenes they think were irrelevant to the plot, and I edited the film to their liking as well. Eventually, we ended up having to refilm 2 scenes to be able to cut the time shorter, and we used the newly improved shorter versions of the shots in the final film. There were also times where I had to speed up a scene so that we would save a few more seconds. A major area of development was also in color grading, because at the beginning of the film I kept the colors quite natural and balanced with warmer tones so that it reflects the main character's upbeat and uplifting mood before she checks her grades. After she checks her grades, I used dynamic keyframing during the exam paper scene to showcase how her mood changes while she sees her grades getting less and less each time. And so I used dynamic keyframing for that to switch during the scene from a more warmer tone to a cooler, darker tone. And from there on, the rest of the film follows that tone, and it is more darker, cool toned, and moody. The monologue was probably the most important audio element in the entire film, as it explained all of the main character's internal thoughts and feelings, and it's really going to help the audience relate to her character more and understand what she's thinking. And I didn't want it to sound too scripted or artificial, because the goal was to make it seem like genuine thoughts rather than a performance. So I made that note to Amy, who was voice acting the monologue as well as acting the character. And in addition to editing, my understanding of mise en scene also improved. I became more aware of how everything within the frame contributes to meaning. For example, the use of the exam papers in the phone wasn't random at all. It was a clear visual indication of academic pressure and comparison, which was what we were trying to portray with the film. These props help create a sense of realism and communicate the theme without needing too much explanation. So it plays into a show don't tell dynamic. This also made the story feel more personal and relatable, as many teenagers can relate to checking our exam papers and being disappointed. Looking back, I think the use of mise en scene was quite effective in supporting the narrative, and I'm glad I played a part in that. My camera work also developed, not only through imperfections but also the preliminary magazine task, as I used close ups to focus on the pet's expressions, and I learned how to photograph through that magazine cover. But when it came to imperfections, I learned how to direct a close up shot of a character's expressions and reactions, especially in moments where she's looking at her results or looking directly at her phone. These shots helped us create like a sense of emotional intensity and allow the audience to connect with her more closely. I also used point of view and over the shoulder shots, which help place the audience in her perspective and immerse them in her point of view. This makes the experience feel more, in depth, as the audience is seeing things through her eyes. Now, when I rewatch the film, I do think these choices were effective, although I could improve on my camera stability, as the camera did shake a little bit when I was filming these scenes. Overall, this project clearly shows my development as a media student, particularly in editing. I've moved from very basic editing skills and very surface level knowledge of media studies in general to a more thoughtful and intentional use of color grading, audio, transitions, dynamic keyframes, and so much more. And all of these elements, I understood how they help shape meaning and emotion. At the same time, my improvements were also not just in editing, but in the wider range of things such as mise en scene and camera work. These helped me create a more cohesive and professional product with my teammates. In conclusion, this project has been a really important step in developing both my technical skills and my creative understanding of media studies. Thank you.